Hey everyone, I'm Jordan from New St. Andrews College. I'd like to invite you to join us for one of our upcoming prospective student weekends. We have one on March 2nd and 3rd, and another from April 13th to 16th. To learn more and to register your visit, check us out online at nsa.edu. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show.
Hear the world calling, but son, don't you listen. They're only trying to drag you back into prison, that's right.
Welcome back to What Have You. I'm Rachel Jankovic,
I'm Becca Merkel.
and we've been reunited in the car in front of my house. No doubt Shad will pop out in a minute to interrupt us, but
Most likely he will.
yes, but anyways, we're back.
Yes.
Becca, what have you been doing? Traveling.
I'm literally back. Yeah, we got back late last night and had a lovely trip, sort of a whirlwind trip to Texas. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'll tell you though. The bad news. The bad news is that I have come back remembering that I need to make some stained glass.
That is like the throwback to 20 years ago? 20 years
probably
ago?
More. It was in high school.
25? Were you in high school 25 years ago? That
when
can't
was
be.
I?
20 years ago.
You've had your 20-year
How
reunion,
old are you?
right? Have you?
I don't think so. No, I guess it would be this year.
This year. You're hitting 20, which would mean...
We're so old.
But I think I was in high school when I felt like, oh, that's something I should know about. So did a little stuff there. But then when I was down in Texas, the lady I was staying with very kindly took me downtown to see some shops. And she had done some stained glass, which reminded me, oh yeah, that's a thing that I should do. And then we went into the glass shop and it was like, darn it. This is something I need to do. It's true that people do a lot of horrible things with this craft. It's like weaving.
You can't find me objecting to crafts just because people do horrible things. That's my great, haven't I said this on the podcast? It's my great argument for learning more than one skill. Because, back when there was no internet, and that was not an option, I hated Joann's because I identified it totally with bad plastic canvas efforts. Yes. I would be like, what is going on? If you were going to be crafty, you have to be plastic canvas Kleenex box covers. Yeah. And I was like, and who wants that? And then I thought, I think that those pattern books they had at Joann's, they've even gotten better now. But they were not attractive. No. At that time. Mm-mm. And I would look at them and I thought that
they still take it right out of you, I think. It seemed
like a bad cyclone of getting stuck in a genre to me.
They're very demoralizing.
Yeah. And for me, it was a major moment when I suddenly caught a vision for what if you knew how to do lots of things so that you could make what you wanted rather than being like, I want to make something. What can I do in this narrow category of things? And it was like, that's how we end up with the problems.
Yeah, it's true.
That was an era where the crafts were running amok anyways.
Yeah, they were.
There was a lot of mop head dolls and door stops with raffia.
Little wooden cutouts of things.
I think we had a big surge was Grandma Greenside's the one who was making those dolls that held doors open? There was a lot of. Do you know what I'm talking about? They had beans in the bottom, and they were like a tall doll that
I don't think Grandma made those, but I saw them around.
They might have had raffia hair. There was a lot going on there at that time.
Yeah, it was in the country kitchen phase.
And my husband recently just popped off with something I didn't know about his past. What? I think it was a very, very short interlude in his past when he was 10 or something. But he was back when we were all trying to paint wooden geese to go on the wall.
Was Luke a tall painter?
I think maybe only for an afternoon or something. But he was like, what was with that whole era where everyone felt like we had to paint wooden geese?
There was a lot of goose theme.
Yeah, we bought Mom that cookie jar that had a blue mob cap. It was a blue goose.
Yeah, with a bonnet
with a mob cap bonnet and a big bow on its neck. I sometimes see that same cookie jar at Goodwill.
Really?
I never bought it.
You haven't gotten it. Yeah.
No, I've stayed off the...
I know. And
why a blue goose? We bought that for her.
There was a lot of geese, though.
But we were like, she'll love this.
It was a country time. But...
I also remember it was the same era of our childhood where we bought her a new crock pot. Remember that?
I do.
Because her old crock pot was failing.
No, it wasn't. It was. We just noticed that it was not
modern and stylish.
It was either dark brown or olive green, and
it was olive green. I remember.
We were sort of like, maybe we need to update.
Outdated. We got to get a country kitchen crock pot.
So we went down to the Giant T with our money we'd scrounged up. And
I remember buying the weirdest things at the Giant T. And we bought her a crock pot that was like beigey cream with little toe painted hearts on it,
which felt much more fashionable.
Like, look, we got you a chic
crock pot. And probably, if I know anything of the case, I bet you that old crock pot was mile better.
I know, and then poor Mom then had a cheap, not like a crock pot we could afford from the Giant T. Had to be nothing.
And, those old appliances, man, they just stick to it
forever.
They just live on, and it was probably a really valuable olive green one that we traded her up, but for the stylish country kitchen look.
It's the things that mothers put up with.
People were hanging a lot of Jell-O molds on the wall, and
hanging
baskets from the ceiling. And
wasn't that early Martha Stewart?
She was in it to win it in the early country kitchen days. Yeah.
Anyways, we were influenced at a young age.
I'm telling you, I need to make stained glass because the thing is it's like cutting glass is not hard, and the process doesn't look hard. It just looks like something I'm going to need to go ahead and do so I can have done it. And then the other problem that
where would you put your stained glass window?
Well, that's neither here nor there. I don't have a need for stained glass. Oh, well.
Back up on that again. Think of, you have no need for anything that is stained glass.
You don't actually need dish towels, but you're making them anyway.
I do need them.
But they're easy to come by in
other
other ways.
They aren't.
Yes, they are. You get on Etsy and order a $35 dish towel. And you can have one that's homemade.
$35. I like to spend a lot more than that on
You like to spend a lot more time. No, I love it. And I'm just saying you should understand that the need
but I don't need them. I'm just saying, wouldn't you do something wouldn't you?
Okay, here's why it appeals. Part 1, because I want to have tried it. Well, I have tried it before, but what I was trying was where you buy the strips of lead and you insert the glass into it. This is like the copper foil method, which I would like to try. So I just want to have done it. That's the first part. But the second thing is when people mostly make horrible atrocities when they make it, it just makes you feel like surely this could be done better. Like this could be, not all of them. Some of them are really beautiful. Obviously stained glass, there's a lot of beautiful stuff. But you know what I mean about
yes, I do.
The kind of kitschy stuff that people whip up. Anyway,
I've been having the same struggle.
To try
the same parallel struggle with wool applique because they're very pretty some of the time. Like sometimes it's like, oh, that's really lovely, but they're all like kits. Like if you go to look for it, it's kits, and then there will be like 2 or 3 blocks in a project. Like say it's like a wall hanging. I've never made a wall hanging, and I feel a little sensitive even about the subject of wall hangings, but they are lovely sometimes. So I'm like contemplating this issue, but like if you like 2 or 3 of the blocks out of 12 or 16, it's like not worth your time.
Just
my
do
word.
Your own,
so then you start thinking of doing your own, and then pretty soon you're like, why do I care about this? Why am I trying to custom craft a wool applique?
But see, I do have one stained glass window in my house, and it is over our front window, and it's original to the house, so it's Victorian, and I've never been very fond of it. It's like it's too busy, and it's got too many colors.
Does it have grapes in it?
It has grapes, and I don't like it's actually when it's night and you are looking at it from the outside and the lights are on inside, it's a pretty window. It actually is. But it's just, I don't know, it doesn't really do it for me. And if I had designed it, I wouldn't have made it nearly so boisterous as that. It's just too many colors. And anyway, so part of me is like, I don't know. And I do have one, well, I've got a couple leaded glass windows that, one, somebody shot a BB through it in times past. Nobody in our house. We got it. The house came with multiple BB shots. So in order to repair the window, like I could take the window out and repair it, but each piece is beveled. And so you have to like trace it on a piece and you have to send it away and somebody will bevel it. So if you want to know, yes, I have Googled beveling your own glass. Turns out it looks like the sort of thing I oughtn't to try.
Turns out.
So that's where I've stalled out. Is like,
wouldn't a local place do that?
No, they don't do beveling. I've checked. No, you have to mail it off to someone in another state. And even this shop that I went to in Texas, they mail them off to Houston to somebody who does beveling.
So, anyways.
Glad that we could, everyone, if you want to bevel a glass, you have to send it away.
Yeah.
Now you know.
So.
Unless you live in Houston. Then you could have it done locally.
So, changing the subject.
I don't know why. Because
changing the subject from this.
Clearly, miscellaneous stained glass is worth our time.
It's compelling. It's compelling. It might be worth our time, but not the listeners. So, this is something that I was thinking about. That is a random thoughts about life. You know when you feel like God moved you on to the next grade?
Yes.
When you just, you're like, wait, our baseline just got elevated, and now...
The treadmill got turned up.
It got turned up, and now
you have to run faster.
Gus, and there's no brakes, and you're wondering if you're going to die or get in shape.
Yeah, and if
you're
running as fast as you were last week, you'll fall off the back.
Right, like God is obviously telling you to step it up. Yeah. So when, in such a time of crisis...
You flop and fall off the back?
Yeah, when it's one of those moments of like, are you kidding me? I would like to quit now. No, thank you. Let's not do all this. Let's not be overwhelmed anymore. Let's not have these problems. Well, I was just thinking about how tempting it can be to start curating your problem more than actually accepting and moving straight through it with solutions. And what I mean is, you're like, here's all of my problems. Here they all are. This is the way it would happen in my house.
And you kind of put them under a cheese dome so that you can...
You're like, look at that disaster. And you're like, nothing. So this last week, Luke had a couple trips, or I don't even know when he had the trips. He had a couple trips in a row. And one of his trips corresponded with the time our dryer wasn't working. So it was just the kind of time that I have so much more respect for how much laundry I'm doing every day, just because I had to lug it all down to the laundromat.
I talked to you on the phone.
And it was wet, which makes it 30
heavy.
times the weight. So hauling the buckets in and loading it up and folding them, it was like 2 hours of strenuous exercise to just do what I do, normal load. Anyways, so it was just sort of one of those times. We also have 2 girls playing basketball, junior high basketball. So there's just a lot of stuff on the schedule. A lot of be here, do this, edit this composition. And then there is the nonstop, the fact that I have children who are hungry all the time. It's the funniest thing when people are just like, what's for dinner? What's for snacks? What's for lunch tomorrow? And they're being perfectly fine that they're asking you these things. And yet you're like, nobody asked me anything about anything that I might be responsible for and haven't figured out yet. I don't want any pressure. So what I'm saying is you end up having this snarl of problems. In our case, we have a couple, it's like extracurricular activities that we know God signed us up for. It's very clear the Holy Spirit put this on our plate, and this is what we're doing. And in that category, I would put any kind of, evangelistic opportunity or something where you're like, come, it doesn't matter what your schedule is. If your neighbor needs to hear the gospel, you make time. You do these things. So we have a couple things like that got just suddenly folded into the schedule. So all this is to say, it's great, it's wonderful, but it is also like, I think we're going to have a hot second to breathe at any point. Where's this happening?
It's going to be spicy through and through.
Right, but I'm realizing sometimes it's like, like if I'm confident that all the things that I'm doing that are on my to-do list are things that honor God and that I should be doing. Like, if there's not an obvious, like, probably you're wasting a lot of your time with that.
Sure.
Assuming that, then you're supposed to be doing an amount of work that is beyond your capacity to do, which is funny. But then you can have that moment where you feel like we need to talk about this, we need to reflect on how much more this is than I can do. But at that moment of the conversation, you don't want anyone to touch it. Like, when they're like, how about we just, and you're like, no, don't. I want that mess. I'm talking about in the flesh. I'm not that we ought to do that. But
when you resent suggestions, because it's like, no, you don't understand.
You don't understand. I don't want solutions to this.
It's like, if you present a solution, that's actually very offensive because it makes it seem like it's possible. And
when you say possible spaghetti, you're insulting the depth of my trouble. You don't understand how big the menu problem is. Spaghetti is no answer. You have that temptation to not want any solutions, and I realized this is something I'm just processing in my own life right now, is that I was like, I think the most important way for me to be better at managing more is to focus on being really good at quick decision making that gets some things off of my plate, because I realize I can be tempted to say, no, let's not talk about I want to put in the list of things I have to do the whole food snarl.
Okay.
But then if someone's like, well, let's stop, someone being Luke, really, who else would do this? He's like, let's stop at the grocery store and grab what you need. And you're like, no, because I have to make a whole plan. Sure. And in my mind's eye, I have inflated this problem to the point that obviously, because we need 3 homemade breakfasts this week, plus snacks, plus, like, you just want to, you're like, no, I want a whole entire solution, not a stopgap measure.
No, there's that, but there's also sometimes, if it suddenly looks like it's feasible, then you would have to do it.
Or
if it's an impossible mountain, then no one can blame you for curling up and crying.
You're like, see?
So
it can't be done, no matter what you said about spaghetti. I noticed this because Sunday nights can be really wild, because we take Sunday, we rest on the Sabbath, and then at 6 is like, okay, let's get ready for the week. But it is not uncommon for, like, at 7:30 Sunday night for me to really genuinely not want to go to the store, not want to leave. You're tired, you're done with it. You're right. This time of year when it already feels like it could be 11:30 or 12 at night, it's dark, you're like, no, we don't need to do this. So last night, my very kind husband is like, no, let's run out, we'll get a coffee, and then we'll stop at the store. We stopped. I didn't have a menu plan. And it was shockingly easy to make a menu plan while bombing through the store and grabbing things that we needed to get through. Like, I really was, like, 20 minutes of not a whole lot of effort. And we solved that problem for a little while. I have a
kind of almost standard, it's Sunday night and I need things for breakfast and lunches and I haven't made the dinner plan yet, but here's just the emergency Sunday night run. I have that one.
Yeah.
That's just common.
We do that too, and I think it's fine. It's just that the thing that I was noticing is that if I don't want to just, when you know God is giving you more to do, and you're like, this means I need to improve in certain areas of how I'm handling things. It doesn't mean, like, it's not true that God is giving us an impossible amount to get done. But he's giving us things that it's like, okay, so where are the margins of time I'm wasting? And one of the big wasteful times would be the time you spend curating the problem and admiring it from all angles. Like, let's take a different approach to how much work this is. And let me reflect on that with myself. Like, just thinking like, this is so hard or this is whatever. I don't know. I just think it's interesting. I've been through many. So what are you saying? I just thought it was something that was helpful to me to think in terms of someone who is dealing with more to do than seems possible has to be someone who can quickly make a decision and move on from something and not
And other times, just learning to, one of the things is learning to, like what you're focusing on, just get up and do some stuff, just tear the Band-Aid off and go get some stuff done. But the other thing is, you have to suddenly, like when you have too much to get done, you have to be okay with some of it not getting done.
Yeah.
And that means not having a big mope festival because the things you had envisioned you doing in January didn't actually materialize in January.
I was just telling my husband, I'm like, the thing is I feel like if you live the kind of life that is really productive and that you got a ton done, there's no way that you didn't spend an awful lot of it feeling like you had too much to do. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're really doing as much as you could be doing, then you should always be up against your own limits, in the sense that you should always be noticing. What I find difficult, and I think is really spiritually healthy though, is the balance between that. We've talked about this in other areas, caring enough to be motivated to do it, and not so much that you're losing your spiritual status as a Christian when you don't get what you were hoping to get done.
So I feel like we talk about frequently, you and I talk about this in terms of like, if you want to be somebody who's getting a lot done, you're being productive, you're making the most of the opportunities, you're, all of that. We talk about that a lot. But then one of the things that I see commonly discussed among women is this idea that you should never take on too much. You need to pare back. You need to become good at saying no. You need to take life slow. You want to be not, and that's a very popular thing right now. And I don't remember if we've talked about it much on the podcast.
I think we have.
I remember we talked about it once. Somebody asked us about this. Like, when do you say no to things? Because, no, I just can't take on more. Where is that actual line? And the truth is, both you and I know that there's that line. We're always talking about trying to get more done. But there is a point at which it's no, for heaven's sakes, no, don't do that thing. And Ben says no all the time. If I'm like, you know what I ought to do? I ought to start a weekly. Ben will be like, no.
There is a whole genre of things that I not only do I not do, but at this point in my life, I refuse to even consider doing it or feeling bad that I'm not doing it. But those are things that I think just don't align at all with my gifts, and they are not worth the pressure of trying to get that done. It's just not worth it. It's not the right thing for me to do. But we do constantly reevaluate what our priorities are. What am I doing?
Yeah.
So anything that's outside of the homemaking, housekeeping fields, we constantly reevaluate. And I do a lot of stuff that is leisure activity. I working on my needlepoint project that Luke got me for Christmas. I probably do something on that every day.
Okay.
So when I'm talking about I'm at the end of my rope, there's a lot of things in there that are sort of bonus rounds. Mm-hmm. It's not like I have to be making homemade bread and that's a family commitment issue.
No, but here's where I think people tend to feel the pressure. Is it seems like a lot of times it's church commitments when they want you running the nursery, they want you bringing stuff to the evening get-togethers, they want all of those things, and then women feel guilted into it, and they feel like they're already maxed out and they're already doing all this stuff, and then I have to. So when they're talking about saying no, it's like saying no to coordinating the soccer party, or it's stuff like that. And so what thoughts? Give me your thoughts on this.
Well, one genre of thing that I haven't done, that I think is noble work that other people are doing, but that I know it's not me. It's not for me right now. With our kids at school, there's a thing you can sign up to bring coffees to teachers on Fridays.
Yeah.
I know that that it would end in screaming panic to load everyone in the car, and I forgot to get the coffee, and what coffee was it that this teacher likes, and how am I gonna? it is not my life right now that I'm out running errands unencumbered normally, and I could easily grab a coffee and take it to someone. That doesn't mean it won't be at some point. It's just that it's not worth it right now to put that on my schedule.
And so I would add that when there's things like that,
You feel free to just not be guilty about it.
And you just think, like, yeah, I that's not going to work right now in my life. That's not going to be good. Then don't sit there feeling like the worst mom on the block. Like, don't worry about it. If you can't do it, if it's not a true, like, spiritual obligation, which actually taking care of your family and being in charity with them, that is a spiritual obligation. And so, like, don't feel like if you didn't sign up to bring treats to the book club for your 7th grader, that you are failing as a Christian.
I will say, though, that I'm not sure how much women actually, well, maybe I'm getting far afield here. I just want to say at least a large portion of what women talk about being mom guilt is not really mom guilt. It is mom begging for affirmation from other people.
You know, can we just pause a moment and say, I don't know what you mean by mom guilt, but that is such an unsavory thing for people to do.
When people talk about, I'm saying, I don't know how many women are actually feeling guilty that they didn't hand make Valentines with their preschooler, but by bringing it up and telling everyone how guilty they feel about not doing it, they're begging everyone to affirm them and tell them that they're amazing and you're so...
And this is so bad. I hate when people are like, oh, I just look so fat, so that everyone say, no, you are beautiful. It is like...
It's like a call and response.
It is.
Because I had a friend once who would do this. She's more of an acquaintance, but she would flatter me beyond, like, where I would end up looking at her with that emoticon flat face, because I'm like, I know and you know that you're not telling the truth.
You're just
right
fishing
now.
For a compliment?
Yeah, she's just like, you are just such an incredible artist, and you're just so, and I'd be like, like, and the only reason she would say that was to toss me a big lobbing softball that I would hit back of, like, no, you are an amazing artist.
No, you're much better than I am.
Which I also knew to be not the case. So the whole thing was like a big monster pants begging for compliments, and I hated it.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm like, no, if somebody starts that up with you, you feel like they're obligating you to something.
Yeah.
Like, now are you saying I have to tell you this because I think you're lying to me and I don't want to lie to you.
And the thing is, like, what do you mean by mom guilt? Like,
people call mom guilt anything like, I'm not, my kids aren't eating healthy enough food. I just feel really bad about this. Like, I think I just wonder, guilt's a horrible motivator, and I'm sure there are a lot of women who are dealing with various kinds of guilt that they're not living up to Pinterest expectations of motherhood or something.
Sure.
But I also think it's more of a transfer of goods that's going on between moms and anything else.
There's also the sort of humble brag that happens, where if you come forth saying, oh, I just feel so horrible because my kids had to eat PBJs on store-bought bread this week. Then it's a way of...
That's that logical... It's that, what is it? It's the fallacy that says something like, he came in sober today. But it's like an inverse version of that.
Sure.
Like where you're saying you're implying something that is... You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But I just mean, like, there's a way of you sort of exhibit your guilt in such a way as to make everybody go, oh my word, she's incredible.
In which case, it's probably not real guilt. It's probably just another kind of transfer.
The humble
going
brag.
On. Yeah.
It's basically doing the, like, oh, my waist is just so tiny that I have a hard time finding pants that fit.
I can't find belts. There are no belts that will cinch in this tight.
But you know, when I have such...
Do you have an 18-inch doll belt I could borrow?
My cheekbones just make it really difficult when I'm trying to style my hair. You know, it's like...
I actually remember... Yeah, that is really funny.
But so anyway, it's not that. I think
these natural, beautiful curls that I have are...
I know!
But women are amazing at this. Okay, hey, just to be clear, I don't have any natural, beautiful curls. My hair is a straight pancake.
No, but when people put on...
I'm saying I wasn't speaking in my own voice.
They put up my hair just came out of bed looking like this
morning. Shoot! Too bad I look so great today.
I know.
So my feeling, though, is that there's all kinds of different ways to get involved in the economic transfers of encouragement that like sometimes
they're
it's
just
guilt,
self-serving.
Sometimes they're just, the whole goal is not to give to people, not to build people up, just to get something that will make you feel better.
Yeah. And so I'm not talking about those things, but you're right. Those are all the like weird little sort of outposts around it. But I mean like women who genuinely feel like if I say no to this thing, then I'm a bad
then I'm
church member.
Less than someone
like
else.
I'm not doing the thing I should be doing. And I feel like part of me, I suppose it depends on who's asking and what it's about.
It does,
but
because
like,
if someone's really genuinely not getting stuff done, and then someone's like, how about you do more with your life? And then
and you're like, no, I'm having self-care right now.
Yeah.
The thing is like, I think we both have a tendency to feel like we had better be getting some more stuff done. We've got to, hustle and bustle and get it done.
The clock is ticking.
We don't encourage one another to pare it back and take more deep breaths and calm ourselves down. We don't tend to do that. But I do think that as a culture, we do not err on the side of working too hard and getting too many things done. As modern women.
Sometimes we fritz ourselves out on leisure.
Yeah, we do. We do.
There is that.
It's possible. But I just mean, like, let's just take a moment to think about women in other centuries, I don't think that our group of modern women are actually failing because they're working too hard and they need to take a time out.
But obviously there's so much room for that all over the place because lots of women are working really, really hard. But
so that's the thing. It's like sometimes I feel like
I'm not so much. I like to assume
get on
that there's
your
a
pony
certain
and ride.
Right, that there's like a certain speed you should be going, and that Lord willing will just keep learning to be more and more effective and strategic at that speed. Because I don't think you can like just become superhuman.
No,
and anytime we've talked before about how you're like, well, anytime my big resolution involves me just being way more awesome than I am.
Or just being a totally
what if
different
I'm
person.
just super energetic this next year?
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. That'd be good.
But so like I remember one lady asked us, but what about like if you just had a baby? Would it be okay? And it's like, oh, good heavens. Like,
yeah, we certainly...
Yeah. If you're the kind of person...
I joked when she said something about that I think I had friends who were like, yeah, you basically are gone from the world when I have a new baby. I'm like... I'm busy.
Yeah.
I am not...
I do think that this is that thing of, like, you want to run fast and you want to cover a lot of ground and you want to get a lot of stuff done. But you also have to be able to measure it and say, yeah, this is not... Oh, you have your seat heater. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
You want to be able to say, like, this is not the phase. Like, we went through a little stretch where it was like, this is not our hospitality phase right now. We just can't. And there's no sense in me then... having a big guilt attack, beating myself up. If you're being faithful with the stuff God has put in front of you, you're making the most of it. And then you can just trust that if you're faithful here, God will bring you out the other side. And then maybe later it will be your coffee delivery phase or your more hospitality phase.
You have to be okay with that. And okay with understanding that people are very different. I know people who are like really, really not at all, just the way people are affected by different kinds of work. Some work is easy for me and very hard for other people. Okay. And work that is easy for them is hard for me. Like, we are differently gifted.
But see, okay, this is where I feel like you always have to, like, when Christ's parable of the talents, he gives different amounts to each servant, and each servant is responsible for what he was given, not for what the other guy was given. And you're expected to return... Give the master a return on the thing he gave you, but so often women measure their fruitfulness by looking at other women. And I just, like, this is one of those things I notice in the garden where it's like different plants have totally different kinds of fruit. And you could have, and depending on where it's planted and what kind of a plant it is, some plants are going to come out with one big fruit, and that's it. Like, they've got it. There's one. And then other ones have tons of little berries all over the place. And if you think, yeah, but look at all of her berries, but I'm an eggplant or something. It's like...
we're not the same. And
you're not the same. And you can't measure yourself up against other women.
I think you should women are really bad at comparisons. It's true.
Bad at comparisons or bad with comparisons?
Both. They're bad at all of it. comparisons can be just really healthy. Like if you're starting to run and you're like, I'm not really good at this, but I would like to be better at this. You might want to find out what's an average decent mile time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like if I am running a 1 mile in 30 minutes, what is a reasonable goal for me? You know, like, and so in that way, it's totally legitimate for someone to be like, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids, and she has 4 kids. What is she doing?
Yeah.
You know, but it's not good when any of the envy or striving gets entered into that. Like, instead of just like,
and then when you're comparing yourself on your worst days to her on her best days on social media.
Or the meanest, most stupid thing of all that we do is comparing our own best days
to someone else's worst days.
No. Oh, well, that would be the meanest. No, I meant the thing you can do to yourself where you're like, that one day where I just got so much done. And instead of receiving it just as a gift, like God gave me that day where I had the opportunity and the ability and I had the energy and we got it done. And instead of receiving it as a gift, you want to be like, new baseline. Anything less than this, I'm going to complain about now.
Right.
You know, like, and I have to be really aware of it. It is an exertion for me when my husband is out of town. It is a different level of intensity. And that almost universally, the day after he gets back, I am like tired and weird and hard to get going. It's like I made it to a finish line and then it's really hard. You're like,
you collapse.
No way, that was a finish line. How is it Thursday? Like, what happened here? I'm confused. And so I think it's just important to keep your...
I think we easily compare ourselves to others, but I think we also compare ourselves to our own fictitious versions of ourselves. You know, like we have this sort of ideal me in our heads, and then we hold ourselves up to that. And so it's really struggling with realism sometimes.
Yeah, like we're not gifted at
But it's also, the other thing is, you know, I love that bit in The Horse and His Boy where
the lion.
Bree is running, and then the lion comes, and he finds out later, it's like, no, you weren't actually running as fast as you could. You thought you were, but you weren't.
That's why the lion had to come behind you.
The lion had to come behind because you weren't able to get yourself there, and I think that very often we think, oh, I'm just so maxed out, I'm just so exhausted, I'm just so overtaken with all my duties, and then... oh, suddenly it turns out, oh, I can run faster.
There's that tank top somewhere that makes me snort. That's like, it's like looks like a gravestone. It's just a black, but the way the words are written. And it says, in memory of when I used to care. I know that mood where you're like, somehow I burned myself all the way out and I am unable to generate any enthusiasm for this task.
Yeah.
But I know at another time I did care about it. I was going to say, a lot of the things that I have to work to get into my schedule that I do because I care about them, like right now I have the needlepoint thing going, or knitting or weaving or things like that. Those don't fit naturally into a busy life. Like I have to actually make an effort to do those things. But one of the things that I notice is actually, for me, that is like the I don't even know what they give marathon runners on the side of the road when you're running by and you grab. It is actually a really refreshing short break that is really helpful for me in maintaining endurance.
I am really bad at that because I am not naturally a multitasker at all. Like I'm 100% in and then I'm 100% out and not interested in it right now. And so like it's actually a huge effort for me to plod along at something. And so like I
don't know if it's natural for me. Maybe
no,
it is, but I have been working hard on doing that for a long time.
But everybody generalizes and says, oh, but women are multitaskers and men are single-minded. And I think like, maybe, but
I'm a man.
I don't feel the natural ability to multitask. Like I can immerse myself in a project.
Yeah.
And I can stay up late to finish the project. And I can throw myself all the way in. But like setting aside 10 minutes to just do it a little bit today and then a little bit tomorrow. I think weaving and knitting are nice because they are kind of naturally geared to be, you can pick it up and you can set it down.
When Lena was little, I realized sewing was not for me because I would get all the fabric all out on the table and you like pin on all the pattern pieces and then you're like, whoops, it's dinner time. Gotta wad that back up. And then it was so much effort to get it out and put it away that I wasn't doing it all the time. But that was when I really got more into knitting. But it's easy to fall out of doing something, even though I've been doing it now for a long time. It's easy to fall out of something and not come back to it for too long. So I have a big basket that's like my project basket, and I will make sure like I have to touch it every day. And I'm like, I don't care if I only knit like 10 stitches. I pick it up every day at some point and then put it back down. And the thing is that has the effect of keeping your mind, like you come back to it, you see it, you're like, it, but it also helps me, like my husband knows me well enough now that if I am antsy in an evening, he's like, so don't you have any knitting? Like, like he know, and like I actually start to really feel like I am like being deprived of something if it's been a while and I have not done anything.
And I think probably the projects that I currently have going, it's not like you can just go lay 3 or 4 tiles and then put it away.
Yeah, but what's funny is that I've even gotten to a place in my crafting life where I actually have projects designated for specific kinds of moods. I have projects.
Great. That is organized of you.
It's not organized. It's happened in a pretty organic way, but I like to have a mindless knitting project, something that's just work that's repetitive, and then I like to be doing something that something that's new or takes more focus or mental energy to, like, that's the weaving for me right now. I have to pay a lot more attention. I don't mindlessly weave yet.
Sure. Yeah.
So I have things that's like when I have energy and time,
I
might work on this for a minute. When I'm just zonked out, I'll just knit around on this sock.
Yeah. I'm in the like screaming shriek of deadlines kinds of like so for instance, I would not right now be able to get out something to sew because I'd be like, are you kidding me? I have to, like, I need to clean out my attic. I've got so much stuff I need. Like, it would feel frivolous to me to sit down to sew. However, when suddenly it's like, and my daughter wanted me to sew her a dress and the dinner is this Friday, then suddenly it has forced itself to the top of my list, and now I don't feel guilty about the attic because I have to, like, it's the press of the deadline that justifies it for me. So I really need to, I feel like I just need to get over the hump a little bit on my crazy life.
I like it because I would keep my knitting, dishcloth knitting stuff. I haven't done this in a while. I would knit dishcloths, but I would keep them in the glove compartment.
Yeah, that was smart of you.
But it feels like knit dishcloths are just falling from heaven because you're actually doing it in a time that you were doing nothing else.
If only I knitted, then I would be able to do that.
In fact, there's always time. There's always time you could learn. I know someone who could teach you.
It's true. No, like, I love the idea of just like, I'm going to just set aside a few minutes a day and I'm just going to sit down and sew a little seam. But for me, it's like, nope, once I'm in it, I'm in it.
One of my favorite things that people say epic things about handwork. If you do handwork, I'm sure you've had people say epic things to you. One of the funniest to me is how often people tell you that they don't have time for it. But oftentimes it is when they obviously have the same time that you have.
Because you're both sitting
you're both sitting in the waiting room at the doctor's office and they say to you, I really don't have time to do that. And you're like, really? You just have, this is your Candy Crush time? Do you know what I mean? Like this is, that is such a funny thing. Because I was like, well, I know what you mean, but I also, I know what they mean, that it seems like, and it is always true that getting started in something is a much bigger time designation than once you already know what you're doing, then you can easily pick it up and do it. Yeah. That is knitting for me now. It's not something I have to like. Yeah.
It's true.
But where will I buy the yarn? Or how will I do this?
Exactly.
You've overcome those things already? All right, so do you have any hot tips?
Oh, you start with your hot tip.
Oh, I don't have a hot tip.
Yes, you do. You said that you would.
Did I?
I asked you before we started this. I said, do you have a good tip? And you were like, yeah, I'm sure I do.
Well, that confidence in myself was really mislaid.
I think you said something that was close to that.
I don't think I said that exact thing. How about, let's have a topic. Oh, I said let's talk about books we're reading.
No, I'm not reading, like, anything worth tipping right now.
Okay.
Okay, I have a tip not related to books, and you hate this tip. I might have actually already said this tip and had you hate it on the podcast.
All right. Go ahead. Tell us.
Okay.
I'm ready now with all my hates.
Yeah, you're going to get out the hate backpack and unpack it at me.
Okay.
When you're going to be baking something that requires shortening.
Oh.
See?
Yeah.
And you're like...
I hate it.
And you need to put 1/3 of a cup of shortening in your whatever it is. And more than this, you're going to need that 1/3 of a cup again for the recipe in a minute. I hate squidging out your shortening from the cup. It's like, you never get it all out. It's a total messer. So you just throw a piece of saran wrap, guys, in your measuring cup, pack in your shortening, and then you just pull out the saran wrap, dump it in. It's a perfect little cube. You throw it away. Life is beautiful. And then you don't have to rinse out and wash out greasy cup.
Do you do that same thing? Like if you're like, I'm gonna need a dry ingredient later, let's just saran wrap this for the water.
For the water? I thought you were going to say honey or something. And I'm like, no, because clearly that would be dumb. Because the thing that's so luscious about the shortening, if you bake with shortening and you don't have moral scruples about shortening. But the thing is...
You should have just been talking about coconut oil so that nobody can object.
When I say Crisco, I don't mean Crisco at all, guys. Pretend I didn't say that.
For healthful fat.
Because the thing about it is shortening does make a luscious chocolate chip cookie, depending on the kind you want. Anyway, but the thing is, no, I really dislike it because it's greasy. You have to go wash the whole thing. Then you have to dry it. And as soon as you've washed it, then all of your sugar or flour is going to stick to it. It doesn't matter how much you dry it. It always sticks.
I have a simpler solution than the saran wrap.
Just buy multiple cups.
I have more than one set of measuring cups.
Well, you also have kitchen cabinets. You first world dweller.
But I just can't get behind the idea of wrangling with a piece of saran wrap.
You don't wrangle. That's
you
the
wrangle.
Thing. You don't.
You wrangle.
You cut a little
piece.
piece.
If you're doing anything with saran wrap, you are wrangling with saran wrap.
You cut one square, guys. Tuck it in your third of a cup. It doesn't even. You just stick it in there, and then when you lump your Crisco in with your spoon, you just pack it all in there tight. It works just great. Easy schmeezy. I love it. It's like, like when you're, when you're going to throw a stick of butter in something, it's very nice to just unwrap it and drop it in. Like imagine if you were scooping it out of a tub, Rach, and trying to measure out a half a cup.
Have you gone so far as to just buy the sticks of shortening?
Well, I have, but I don't love it as much. Because for one thing is you pay
what I'm going to tell you
a lot more.
Here's what I'm going to tell you to do.
And then you have a cut thing of shortening.
Do Becca's saran wrap technique, but fill up your cookie sheet with designated wadges of saran wrap of Crisco, and then freeze it so you can just have a bag.
Now you're just being ugly.
So you can have a Ziploc bag full of half cup measurements of Crisco.
You know what I have sort of done though before?
Know what?
I have done that with bacon grease in an ice cube tray. Because
it's not as weird.
Because you just feel like if you have bacon grease and you need to save it, because let's be honest, roasted potatoes if you toss them with some bacon grease, it makes the most luscious potatoes ever. Anyway, if you just freeze it in little cubes, then boom, you've got it.
I thought of my tip.
What's your tip?
So this is how to make a large scale batch of au gratin potatoes like I just did for Sabbath.
Okay.
Realize that you're running way behind.
Okay.
Realize that you have not peeled potatoes in time.
Just decide skins are good.
Because you've been procrastinating on Saturday.
Sure.
And when it comes to your attention that you're not on time, the next step is, of course, to think that this is the time to try peeling potatoes with a drill.
Did you try that?
I tried.
I have always wanted to try
Luke,
that.
How do you feel about running?
But do you actually have one of those wire brushes?
We didn't have a wire one. I looked it up and somebody just said to use the toilet brush. So we sent Luke to the hardware store. He went screaming off to the hardware store.
To buy a toilet brush?
Just like a stiff plastic bristle brush.
Yeah, and then how do you
hack
attach
off
it?
the end and then just grip it in the drill. The trouble is, it did clean those potatoes like
How do you get it in
nothing
the drill?
else.
Does it just have like a little
when your
skinny
drill will
thing?
like open up. Yeah, we cut it at a place where we could get it into the drill. And,
Okay,
And it cleaned those potatoes like nothing else known to man.
Did it peel them?
It peeled parts of some of the potatoes. I think
Probably a wire brush
they
would
should.
have done
Well,
it more.
I wonder if like a red potato would have been better
Did you
than
use
a
the
russet.
hose? Were you running the hose in the bucket at the same time?
No, we did it in the kitchen sink, but it was a tall bucket, so it was okay. But
Okay.
they were
When I
like
saw it-
oblongy big potatoes, so I wondered if they didn't turn enough. But they did get so clean that peeling them afterwards was a real breeze, but it was not what I wanted to do with them. It did peel them in parts. I think if they were rounder, and I think if I bought a wire brush would for sure have done it.
Yeah.
They were all whizzing around and they're like nobody's business, but it was kind of like, how long are we going to keep trying this when I'm already late on the potatoes?
Yeah, okay. Well, I think we should all get together and try it with a wire brush and see. Because I have wondered this.
I think I have a life where I'm going to have to periodically peel far too many potatoes.
So when I say, yeah, me too. Seriously,
Mm-hmm.
I just the other day, I was making.
You guys were doing potatoes for 700 or whatever.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
too many.
And no, but I just last week I was doing 25 pounds of potatoes in one batch. Just
It's a
like
lot. It's a lot.
a lot. It's a lot to peel.
A person grows weary.
But when I saw it, somebody was just had the hose in the bucket outside and was just holding the brush down in those potatoes, and
It's a wire brush?
it was a wire brush, and those peels were like flying everywhere because the hose just kept them like churning out. And after,
Well, the spinning drill got real.
yeah, but this
going.
got all the peels flying out the top of the bucket at the same time because you had the hose, and so it was just
I'm
like
gonna need to try it again.
Actually, I'm glad you brought this up because I've always meant
I'll
to
keep
try it.
refining the system.
I've seen people do this with the toilet brush thing, or not even a brush. Maybe it was just the wire attachment. I don't know, but to clean tile with, like tile in the shower.
Well, these were russets, and I think that their skin is a little bit thicker than like like red potatoes or like
russets
Yukon
have
Gold.
the thickest. Yeah,
Yeah, and so
Yukon Gold, I bet would just peel in a flash. I mean,
maybe I'm gonna try it all now.
I think we need to.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll keep you posted.
Everyone, try the Saran wrap. You'll thank me.
You'll
Rachel?
thank me, and you can join on
Rachel?
in Facebook and mock me for my disapproval of this tip.
You ought to try it.
I've done it back when you first recommended it to me. I feel like when we were but children.
I have stayed with this.
This is a
path.
long-standing disagreement and shortening measurement techniques.
No, because here's the thing. When you're scooping it back, you might get it in all level, but you know you didn't get it all out. So now your measurements are messed up.
I just feel confident in that margin of error. Just like, can't possibly matter.
Now that you say this, I too am confident in the margin of error. I still just don't like leaving a lot of greasy residue on everything.
That probably has to do with how long you lived without a dishwasher.
Well, that's valid. You may have brought to light the origin story.
Yeah, because then you have to get in there with a sponge. But if you're just putting
that's what
it
I'm
in
saying.
the dishwasher.
No, you have to get in there with a sponge, and then you have to dry it off, and then it sticks your flour to it.
It's a really hard knock life with the
Guys,
Crisco.
try it.
All right.
It's good.
We'll let you go.
Goodbye.
Bye.
I'm a 2009 graduate of New St. Andrews College, and I'm a commercial property manager.
3 kids at Logos, 1 at home still, and I do flowers on the side out of our house. When you have these little people that you're responsible to shepherd, you realize I need to know what I'm talking about because they need to have a firm foundation and they need deep roots so that they don't get blown over and that they're ready to stand up for the truth.
I am a programmer. The language aspect of NSA is a fantastic preparation for any sort of programming.
I'm a real estate broker here in town. I think absolutely the perfect education for being in sales of really any kind.
I actually put it to a lot of great use when I was working in the political realm.
I am a pastor in Central Coast, California. Whatever vocation you take, it'll make you take that seriously because you're seeing it through the lens of the sovereignty and lordship of Christ.
To learn more, visit us online at nsa.edu.